that it's you. Sometimes that can be a little tricky. And so our students, when they seek help with that, generally are going to our FLCC help desk. So our help desk does a great job of supporting our students in that way. Instructional design team, which consists of Jeff Dugan and Ashley Seeger-Cicchini, work very closely with Juliana Sherman, professional academic advisor, to identify issues that we see in courses. So if a student makes a complaint, the instructional designers will go in and take a look at the course to make sure that it is up to our standard at FLCC. If we find that it's not, then the instructional design team works directly with the faculty to adjust that course so that it is up to the FLCC standard. Our ASAP office works with some students remotely to assist them with tutoring, but we'll get to some more tutoring in a moment. One-stop offers support to all of our students, including our online students via email and phone. Student Life has really started to do a lot more with our fully online students, which is really great. The Warrior series, which I'm sure you're aware of, is available to fully online students. One of the student corporation members is actually a fully online student, which that is kind of a first ever. So that student is not on campus at all, so that's exciting. And the student corporation sent gifts to all students who graduated last year, not just those in person, which is a new thing that they did. So that, again, another great step to make those students feel more part of this community. And the more we can do to make them feel part of this community, the more we can establish a long-term relationship with them after they leave this institution. Externally, we have support from SUNY with their SUNY Online Help Desk. They offer after-hours support, so they're open until midnight, and they're also open on the weekends. So they are able to help students and faculty in real time via phone, which is really helpful. You know, the time our students are logging on the most outside of your normal daily business hours is 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. So at least for one of those hours, our students can reach out and seek support if they need it. For Thinking Storm, that's 24/7 online tutoring inside of learning management system. Students can click on a link. It takes them and connects them directly with a tutor related to one of their courses that they're taking. It connects them with a tutor who could be anywhere in the world. If they connect at 3 a.m., they're probably not getting a tutor from North America because no one is really working at that hour. But 90% of the tutors have master's degrees or higher. And the connection time is generally within a minute or so, depending on, it's a little bit near the end of the semester. And the overall satisfaction rate out of 4 has been 3.7 for our students. So working out really well for our online students. And our face-to-face students can also use this service, which is great because our ASAP office has very specific hours. This allows our students who do want to work at night to be able to use this service as well. Hypothesis, which Kurt is going to talk later. Kurt is our biggest user of this. It's a digital annotation platform, so it allows students to collaboratively work together, reading a text, making annotations on that text that they can see together, which allows for that kind of group community building experience. It goes beyond what we traditionally do in an online course, beyond just stagnant discussions or things like that. Ally is an accessibility checker that we use. What's really great about this is it has alternate file types. So if a student goes in and sees a file that's PDF, they can click a button and in 10 seconds, it'll convert that file to an audio file. So if they want to, let's say they're going somewhere and they want to take that with them, they can listen to the audio file while they're driving through Bluetooth or something like that if they wanted to read an article or something along those lines. Really beneficial for that purpose. It is meant for accessibility to ensure that all of our students have equal access, but also very helpful for that purpose. And you are aware of Timely Care, 24/7 medical and mental health services for our students, and then Starfish we use for progress surveys, midterm grades, manual flags, and kudos. We just had our first survey for our online students, and we had about 3.5 times as many kudos as we did flags that we would consider kind of negative. So we had it was in the range of 300 flags that were students having low participation at this point in the semester, which is very early, and I know it's very early, but we know that online students need that support really early. We need to get on top of them right away. So this week, members of the online learning team will call every one of those students who were identified as low participation and talk to them and try to help them through whatever issues they're having. but we had over 1,000 kudos, which meant students were off to a good start. And that is really helpful for our students. What I wanted to share here, and the number that I think is the most important is on all the way at the end. If you look at the online right here, if you look at that number, in 2016, that 70% was 59%. So 59% of our students in 2016 were successfully completing the online courses. We have almost double the amount of students online, and it's went up by 11%. We made significant strides in our student success in online learning at this college. You can see that even above face-to-face, we're in high flex. Students are even more successful than those that are taking face-to-face. And that kind of indicates that idea of flexibility is probably really important to our students and something Doc and I have talked about frequently. Some areas for growth really quickly. Student life experiences for online students. We're starting to do some stuff, but we really need to make sure that those students really feel part of this community. General community building, which Juliana is doing a great job of as she started. I found graduation is this one item we have had. How do we get our online students, now that we have so many of them, participate in graduation in a way that's meaningful? If they don't want to drive here from New York, how do we replicate or get them involved in the graduation ceremony to make sure that their accomplishment is recognized and that they have an opportunity with their family to feel recognized? You may have seen Southern New Hampshire drives around in a bus and delivers diplomas. I don't think I'm going to be able to convince Dr. now to give me a bus, but
I've got a car you can use.
gas price, I'm not even sure. There's an answer there. We just have to figure out what that answer is. Is that answer having those students participate day of with video cameras on stage and a high flex kind of format, or is it something different? That's a question we need to answer because it's important that those students are recognized for their achievement. Finally, I just wanted to really quickly highlight SUNY Online numbers. So for networking and cybersecurity, we had 67 total students in 2019. In 2022, we have 132 students that are fully online and another 60 that are face-to-face. So that program has doubled, almost tripled. Engineering science, we had 34 students total in 2019. Now we have 66 that are online only and another 28 face-to-face. So that program has tripled in size since joining SUNY Online. The teaching certificate has always been an online certificate. You can see that has almost tripled in size as well. Computer science, we had 52 students total in 2019. We now have 49 that are online only and another 62 face-to-face. And then healthcare studies, we had 343. We now have 110 that are online only and another 388 that are face-to-face. So these programs that we've worked with SUNY and identified as programs that are in need in the community around the state. We've seen great growth. These are students generally that are in this online bucket that we would not have access to without SUNY Online and the marketing that they're doing in the New York City area, because that is where most of these students are coming from. The average age of the students in these programs is 32 years old, and 48% are minority. So it's something that we generally don't see on our main campus, and really just has been really fantastic growth, and hopefully will continue. Any questions I can answer?
Questions for Ryan?
George, can you see us?
I can't see you, but I can see see me. I can see the questions.
Is there anybody in here that has a question? Lenny has a question, George.
So Ryan, again, I struggle with trying to keep SUNY Online and our online courses separate in my mind. Do they overlap in any way? And or if there was ever a need to end a SUNY Online class, would that be something that could be moved over to our online? or vice versa?
That's a great question. So all of the SUNY online programs started as FLCC online programs. And then they were accepted by SUNY as high need, high demand programs that we rolled over to SUNY online with the hope of growing them significantly. They have grown significantly, not to the numbers that SUNY did originally, but still pretty significant growth. If SUNY online decided that they no longer wanted a teaching assistant to be part of it, we would still offer teaching assistant here at this college, just like we did before. There are programs, we offer the instructors, we offer the diplomas at the end. It's fully FLCC. Just really the benefit of SUNY Online is that they're spending $6 million in marketing, which we can't really afford. So,
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ryan, very, very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a resolution to review. Ms. Kelly Engert on adjusting Finger Lakes Community College professional service positions roster.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to bring this request forward while Michelle's on vacation. In your packets, you will find a request for resolution for the professional roster that lists position titles. There are 2 professional service positions. We are including the resolution for new titles. The first is the enrollment management specialist for admissions. This position supports administrative duties for degree-seeking students applying for college. This is budget neutral. The second position is the assistant director, Mueller Field Station. This position will support the conservation and all the grant funds for this position will account for the budget, so again, remains budget neutral. The position will be responsible for overseeing daily operations at the Mueller Field Station, which also include planning, supervising, developing the various programs and projects, both internal to Mueller Field Station and also external, both on and off site. Within your packet is additional information and full job descriptions, but we would like to move forward with the professional service job title resolution.
Any questions?
Jeff would like the floor for a moment, please. Are we frozen?
No questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
Jeff has one, George.
Camera doesn't work.
I can't see the hands, but so speak right up.
Okay. Just for the purposes of clarification and transparency, my favorite daughter-in-law works in the conservation department.
We're safe that.
She's an adjunct professor, so for to support this, we tend to vote on it. I just want to make sure that I clear the air in terms of any possible conflict of interest. So as long as that's on the record, I intend to vote to support this.
Jeff? Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Enger.
Thank you.
Good. And now we move to the strategic thought presentation, and I will say to my colleagues that they are not in the pool room. We are in the pool room. So I'm going to introduce Professor Curtis Naring Bliss, who is really quite adept at all this. Thank you.
Hi, so we're down in room 1480, and it's sort of an exciting new project that I've been working on with a couple of my colleagues, John Balzer and Trista Merrill, our Director of Creative Writing and our Director of Honors. And the project is essentially bringing dedicated seminar classrooms that broadcast capabilities for high flex teaching and learning. And we've been experimenting with this for the last 15 years at the Honors House. And now we're sort of bringing everything we've learned over here to the main campus. We now have 2 rooms set up for honors or for seminar teaching and learning. And just a real quick sort of thought about what does that mean? So the room here is set up in a square, 5 seats at a side. I can give you a panorama view and I can do a quick walk around. But it's aimed to create a dialogical space or a interactive space or collaborative space that is the signature pedagogy of essentially humanities. And that is also known as constructivism, in which we are the object of study, a text usually of some form, is the centerpiece. And the learners are in the process of co-creating knowledge through dialogue, also often called Socratic dialogue. Sometimes, if you know the great books method, the most recent term I've heard is curriculum as conversation. So for those of us that teach in these spaces, sometimes we have to kind of configure the room to fit what we're trying to do. By kind of designating spaces like this, we're able to kind of move in and create sort of active learning opportunities for students to interact with one another and have these conversations and discussions. This is a kind of a shift of the classroom for many of us. And this semester, and with coming back from COVID, the big addition is certainly the need to do things remote. And we found it often a struggle to kind of create that interactivity and dialogue that we have been having in the classroom, also through through a remote setup. So we've got a kind of new technology setup. We have 360-degree cameras in a space. We have monitors. Currently, we just have monitors on 2 of the walls, but eventually we're hoping to have them on all 4 walls, so that when people in the room are talking, you'll have split screen and you'll see the conversation happening. Currently, you see three screens at the moment. The camera remembers the previous people speaking, and it will kind of assume the dialogue might be going back to them. And it'll support this sort of interactivity. If y'all remember back in the day, or at least my day of my youth, hacky sack was really a wonderful game we liked to play. The goal of hacky sack was not for one person to kind of just showboat and show everything they got, but rather to pass it on to the next person. And that's a good metaphor for seminar teaching and learning. No one individual is the smartest person in the room, but rather collectively, when we start getting ideas shared and we start inquiring into various individuals' reactions and considerations and connections, then this supports that sort of hacky sack, one person to the next. So I'm actually going to pop it over to my colleague, John Palzer, and maybe share a few thoughts of his as an experiential seminar teaching and learning with what you've been up to or what you've been experiencing in that first 2 weeks in our new sort of seminar classrooms here.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm going to pick up my voice here. There I am. So for my entire career here, I have run essentially the seminar style of teaching through creative writing classes. And creative writing classes operate according to the workshop method. And that workshop method is a roundtable of readers offering constructive criticism as a team, as a way to understand what it means to be an audience and what it means to be able to create for an audience at the same time. And so this technology, which I'm as new to it as anybody else, and I'm making my early mistakes and things and resolving them very quickly, because I'm finding the technology to be much easier than a lot of the technology that takes me. far longer to learn than I usually like to. But this works really well, especially for the online students. I'm noticing in the early days of using it here, mainly because in the old camera tech feed, whatever it was called when we were working during the pandemic, you had this sort of Brady Bunch effect on the screen where you have, a dozen faces and my face, each on their screen. It was sort of this unnatural mosaic. What I'm noticing already with the OWL technology is that the students who are in the online setting seem to be responding very much to the OWL cameras as if it's creating something as close as possible to being in the room with us. It's not exactly the same, obviously, because they're somewhere else, but the way that the cameras and the mics shift around, for a moment, each person who's sharing their ideas is focused on, and the person on the screen seems to be like, as if they're almost a bust, if you will, right there on the table with us. And they are already showing a level of comfort where they are opening up and speaking immediately, as opposed to waiting to be selected and pressed like a button on the screen. And that is, it's showing so much promise already that I'm incredibly pleased with it. And I think the students are as well within the first week or so. There's been nobody who is saying something like, I can't stand this, or what the heck's going on. It seemed like they just slid right into it effortlessly. So.
And then I concur. It's so easy when you're doing in-person remote, which in, my view of where we are and what we've learned from the pandemic, I can't imagine teaching a classroom that does not have a student's ability to join remotely, whether they want to sign up for a remote section or whether they just on any given day with, part that won't start or the sick child or whatever reason can join the class on screen. And with this setup, with a seminar table, with 360 cameras, and if eventually we would get monitors on all 4 walls, the idea is that when we'll be speaking directly, and I'm looking at a monitor right now, but the camera is right in front of me, so it's sort of, making what is close to eye contact with the person at home as possible. And that I think will help to, well, I've seen it, it helps to have people feel that they are engaged in the conversation. And then, so they'll be on the screen having conversation. And again, with me at the table and with then anybody else. And after my idea runs out, which hopefully it quickly will, it then gets picked up by somebody else who wants to chime in, and the camera will pick up that person as well. This also is really an effective way to deepen our listening to what people are saying, so that every person in the room, when they speak, does get on camera. We take in information visually so that to see my mouth moving and to see kind of a close-up, and the camera has a nice kind of zooms up quickly. I could actually get up and start walking around and it will follow me around the room. But it will still bop to somebody who has a question. So if you want to go into a little mini lecture mode out of the seminar classroom to highlight a concept that you want to make sure everyone is, the camera will take on the role of the presenter. So that's the project we're up to. We have 2 classrooms now. It's all experimental technology. We're still working out some bugs. All this just went online, and real kudos to the tech staff at the college, the IT folks. They've put this all together real quickly. We've got some audio issues in our room still because of just sort of the learning how it functions. We didn't get a chance to kind of test it with the setup that you have. And so the audio is a little bit muffled. But what our experience so far has been with 2 weeks of in-person remote is students really connecting, and the students in the space recognizing that they're on camera, that the teacher's not the only one on camera, seem to be upping their game and taking more ownership of this sort of ethos of co-creation of knowledge, which is again at the heart of constructivism and the heart of seminar teaching and learning.
And if I can add to what Kurt mentioned about students who may have a family emergency or whatever in their cars and working night, they want to tune in for the day remotely. Those students who have been regularly in the classroom, seems like, and I've had 2 students who've had to tune in for a day, it seems as if what they're tuning into is not something alien, it's not a patch in their life in some way. They know the room that we're in, they had already been in it. And so it seems like a much more this is my interpretation of what I'm seeing so far. They seem like they understand where we are. They understand the place because they've already been in it. So there seems to be this sort of bridging between the two worlds. It feels more organic than my previous experiences anyway. This is just in the early stages too. So in time as we begin to, I guess, master it.
And I, you know, I see this approach, this setup, this layout also serving real well for the college to construct governance and the college to kind of do its business. This setup really is for board meetings, it's for committee meetings, it's for any kind of conversational, dialogical encounter in which there's not, again, a single focus of attention, which is so many of the spaces that we work in. And I think we'll find always giving folks the remote option, but then also having a room that serves both the people in the room and the people not in the room is going to assist in, you know, high quality engagement and high quality interactivity. I think that's our story and we're sticking to it.
How about any questions? And I can't, you're too far away for me to see your hands raised. So if anybody wants to just speak up from the other room initially.
This is Joe. I think several years ago, we had a presentation on this. We went to a year in, and there was a class going on.
Yeah, it was
Or is it Newark? And it was very fascinating. I thought how those cameras did turn around and picked up the person that was talking. So you felt like you were in the same room with them having a conversation. Much better than doing it by WebEx. Yeah, I thought it was very impressive. Yeah.
I have a question. What do they see?
So the screen on our right, which is toggling between those of us that have talked and most recently spoken, that's the window that will be broadcast to anyone on the WebEx channel.
So they don't see that box right there where they are in Studio 14?
It depends on, you have, like, see what I'm doing, you can control which one you want on stage and which you don't. So you can make us the dominant image, or, you know, and when, what I try to do in the classroom is when students on WebEx are talking, I'll give them the stage. And when the room is taking over, it really doesn't matter what we see in the room in terms of seeing ourselves, but it is a reminder, again, to recognize that when we speak, we want to kind of make eye contact with the folks who aren't in the room.
That's a question I had about making eye contact, because sometimes we'll have, like, I can't tell if Richard Russell isn't paying attention over there, and I can't draw him in, but you can.
Well, yeah, so what we did a great experiment where we put our 2 rooms that both have this technology online. And so then you get, and we had 3 people in that room and a couple of people in this room, and then you really see everybody, you know, sort of as if we're all a window, but that kind of creates a clutter and that creates audio difficulties. You wouldn't be able to do it in a classroom setup. But so then by linking meeting rooms together that might have different participants and, you know, wherever they happen to be, corporate, this setup is really, really big in corporate America right now. So where you have small meeting rooms meeting, you know, across the world, that everybody is in little clusters in rooms together, but everybody is on camera and able to see each other if you've got the right screen setups as well. And that's the goal.
So the start of this is a WebEx link, so the student will have a WebEx link to go in. Okay, so the back end is WebEx still.
The back end is any conferencing software.
Exactly.
So with
Zoom
Zoom or WebEx, we're also on a SUNY grant in which there's another conferencing software called Engagely that we're looking to experiment with that also has features that may better support seminar teaching and learning as well. So we're working with IT to kind of imagine possibly using that for, this environment as well.
Thank you.
Other questions from our remote location at stage 14?
George, this is,
Yes, Donna?
my question revolves around the logistics. How many classes are we currently offering? And I'm assuming we are limited to offering just the number of classes that we can schedule into those 2 rooms in the course of a week. I guess.
Yeah, so this is a kind of an experiment. We do have a long-term vision, and we are meeting with, our buildings and ground people and an architect to imagine more rooms like this. And again, we had 3 rooms in the Honors House that were set up this way without the technology. But those rooms were a little too small. We couldn't get the social distancing, so we went offline entirely through COVID. And one of the great things is that the cost of these cameras, they're $1,000 each, 2 in a room suffice. They're linked to each other. So the point of entry to set up this project was very low. So we got the green light a while ago. And it really all just went up the week before the semester began. So we're really still fine tuning it. What does make it nice is that we are sitting at nice sturdy tables, sort of as you are. And when students come in, chairs kind of roll nicely. The comfort level here to begin a conversation for deep learning is just set up the minute you walk in the door. And so, it's definitely above my pay grade to imagine how many rooms we can set up like this. But for those of us committed and experienced in seminar teaching, we don't want to teach kind of anywhere else, but this sort of setup.
Other questions from stage 14?
Just to clarify, how many classes are you teaching now in those?
Don, I
Classroom.
can answer that. They don't have.
I think there's six or seven classes running like this right now. But as we begin to showcase it, this is our first showcase. We're gonna be sharing it with members of our department, and I've got our college engagement committees meeting in this room next week. We're beginning to kind of bring people into it with an understanding of to see if it would fit their pedagogy, and hoping to expand now that we're confident. At the beginning, we only scheduled my classes in here because I didn't want anybody else to kind of suffer if it didn't work. But the minute I saw it was working, then John Paul and Trista Merrill instantly jumped on board. And we have a few more kind of on standby, waiting for some training to join it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is wonderful. And I think, we've had discussions before about the issues that students have where life gets in the way. So it's not like a choice for them to go remote. It's a necessity in many cases. So and I see you're nodding in agreement that is really, and this may go back to some of what Ryan's showing his numbers going up as we're getting this technology better, as far as the outcomes. So.
And in reality, it's a necessity that our students have always had. I mean, life emergencies have been happening for as long as I've been around anyway. And so now we have a remedy for that.
And I'll just say to that, one of the, those of us who talked through the pandemic and when we did all remote, that was tough. That was really tough. This in-person remote combo deal where students come to class to have that experience, and then they might find they have a preference. And in some students don't want to be at home and they want to be here, but then circumstances are such that they will be, but they're eager to get back. So we can kind of play to our strengths and I don't see when more classes get online, in-person, remote, the remote only class, I personally don't see as something that needs to be offered. That tacking on a remote option to as many in-person classes as possible will create enough opportunities in the schedule for students to sign up for classes that have this flexibility.
Fantastic, guys. This is really good.
Thank you.
And if there's no other questions? It's like there's none. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Trustee Cushman. I'd just like to thank Kurt, John, and Tristan Merrill for being pioneers, not just in terms of bringing out new technologies in ways that might be helpful for our colleagues and for our students, but also for their pioneer spirit to reimagine what Honors House is going to be in the future. And I just want to thank all of you for your pioneer spirit. It goes all the way back to the storefronts and your imagination to see things in ways that are just phenomenal. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nye. And with that, that will conclude the Education and Planning Committee meeting. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. Santa, and from stage 14, we can assume that we'll second.
Second. Stein.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned. Back to you, Chairman Geis. And I guess we'll join you over there shortly.
Steve Rob is not with us this evening, and I believe Jeff has volunteered to lead the finance, correct?
Correct.
As we volunteer.
Do you want to wait for them to make the?
Yeah, we can wait a couple
Let's
minutes.
see.
Sure.
The trip?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's only just down in that point.
It's
Right.
just a walk from one end to the building to the other, not the stairs. It really is phenomenal, their imagination. Their imagination for Honors House, Honors programs to be, and you should be very proud since you went through what it still is sort of, but what it's going to be.
What's going to be?
I'm so glad they have.
And we did have a conversation a few years back, I think perhaps when we were talking through the master plan. And we had a very brief discussion about we're looking at furnishings. And there was some discussion about how can we create classrooms that can be flexible, way years before COVID, more flexible for the future. This was when I think collaboration was just coming in as the new method of pedagogy that was really trending at that time. The conversation didn't really go very far because people said, well, we have tables and chairs and desks that we can rearrange. I don't think we really got that far, but it sounds like there might be master plan issues that would be important to consider as we move forward in the future.
Yes, Kathy's working on these first few. This is really a pilot. So if you take when we did it, you went back and when did you mention 2017? You all were 18, early 18 or late 17. You got to see what the synchronous room looked like, which is all the way down at the second floor, whether in the first floor. The cost to make that room work for synchronous learning back then was about $50,000. You just heard them say the cost for these cameras is about $2,000, plus then putting the screens up, and you can say that there's opportunity. It makes that nervous, but this is not for everyone. It's going to a mix of all sorts of different things, but it does help in providing another way of teaching in a way that provides the flexibility for students when they need it. And as Kurt said, it'd be great if you had face-to-face, and if they want to do it the other way, they can do it in certain ways. But just their
they're looking at it differently was phenomenal. But you saw something at $50,000 in 2017, but now you can see what it is now. And you didn't get the benefit they did because you see this big picture here. Normally, if you're a student, you would have had a picture like theirs. So it would have been a lot more interactive going around the room versus our one big picture that you were able to see. I guess maybe the next technology is to zoom in your face.
Be a drone flying around.
And one point on the technology too is just the synchronous classroom requires another synchronous classroom. Right. This uses WebEx technology. So not only is it $2,000 or, perhaps more if you need more cameras, but it's very democratic in how we're able to invite participation. And so from an access perspective, from a mission perspective, the concept's very exciting.
Is there additional financial costs for adding WebEx to this? Or is that just part of our normal WebEx account?
It just,
Just to use WebEx, we have numerous licenses. You could use it on a computer, your phone, technology like this. I suppose we exceeded, what is it, like thousands of licenses right now, don't we have? So I don't see that would be an issue anywhere in the near future.
They're not very fast walkers.
1 minute to text George, tell him to walk fast. But maybe you should.
Could certainly do them then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are we?
That's gonna talk some about it. Maybe they got lost.
So I'm just, again, thinking out loud, when we are looking at, say, furnishings, for example, rooms, we would be looking more at chairs with wheels than we would be at desks and tables that maybe are skinnier, but can be configured in different, okay?
Kathy helped him out if you want to talk about what you did to help.
Yeah, so really quickly, and that's on one of mine, but this is kind of a short-term solution, and we were able to use some of the furniture over at Honor's House that they had already played with.
Right,
And,
okay.
so we brought the tables and then we brought the chairs and we got rid of the very, very traditional, what's in your head, the desk and the chair. So all of that's gone. And actually, if you went down to one of them, we also brought over some couches and he brought a rug. So it doesn't look like a traditional classroom at all. And Cassie, you walked that with me. Yeah, so it's a really nice atmosphere, actually. And I think when we bring the architect in, we're using what we have, but there's some other furniture out there that can really work with them as well. And that's going to be part of that concept plan to look at that.
Kathy, is this gonna be like one classroom or two classrooms? How much actual physical space do they have right now?
Right now, they have two of the larger classrooms down on that first floor of the library. That was the 1995 renovation. And what we're looking at, their concept plan included a third one and then some space in the library more for a student lounge type of thing. But so we're gonna take that concept and beat it up and probably have two different options. And then we'll get some pricing just to get a feel for the rough order magnitude costs. Our first meeting with the architect is October 5th, that first week in October. And we're gonna have it down in one of those rooms so you can get a feel.
Well, I'll tell you what,
I think.
we'll open the meeting.
Wait, there's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, yeah, we're fine. They all
I already
members.
said to see you.
Yeah.
So
I don't know
I'll
what happened to them. They hope they didn't get cleaned.
open the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting for September 7th. And the first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes from August 3rd.
So moved.
Second. Any comments or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And next up is a review of the operating budget and the finance report. So, Here you are.
If you've been in a classroom, the cameras would swirl around.
Voice swirling around, I know right where.
So from the original packet, which. No, that's.
What that one? I can get it just.
Actually, you guys all have it in your packet.
Yeah.
You'll notice that we are almost 92% of the academic year complete. Our revenues in the packet indicate that we're over 100% of receipt compared to last year when we were at about 94 to 96%. The discrepancy you'll see is in the tuition area, and we'll address that in a little bit. We're moving down to the expenses. The expenses are in line. We're 12% lower than our 100% base. Last year at this time, we were about 94, 96%. So we're running in a good place. We have another month to go, and we'll have year-end entries that will affect that. I think the revised person that you share. When reviewing the revenues that were presented in the packet, we noticed a significant discrepancy between the two between what was reported and then last year at this time. The discrepancy was in the tuition area. Yep, no, you had it right. It was in the tuition area. The discrepancy was a result of an entry that was made last year to the July financial statements for deferred revenue. Last year, deferred revenue entry was made in both July, then reversed, and then the year-end one was done in August. This year, that wasn't done. I went back in and updated the spreadsheet now to show you where we would align with in putting in a deferred revenue entry in July. Last year was a recommendation based on our interim CFO, Dan Duby. It's a practice that they do at Jefferson. It's not something that was historically done at FLCC, and that's why it wasn't done this year. If you look at consistent purposes, I've also prepared a multi-year comparison to the spreadsheet, which will show you that you're right in line with the revenue historically from 2018 all the way through 2022. Each of these documents can also be provided you if you're interested in needing something to help you sleep. Does anybody have any questions about the general operating budget?
Any questions?
The next spreadsheet that you have in your packet, I'm going to defer until next month to discuss further the one that indicates without federal aid. I'm going to do some more research on the document and how it's presented to the board and making sure that it's indicating exactly what we want it to reflect.
Christine,
Yes.
do you mean federal aid, or do you mean the monies, one-time monies from the COVID fallout?
Well, it's indicated, that's what we wanted to make sure of. It's indicated on the spreadsheet as being federal aid. My interpretation is that it's the stimulus fund. So we want to make sure that if we decrease the stimulus funds in a budget and an actual received mechanism, but we're also taking out the appropriate expenses. So you're getting a fair and accurate presentation.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Next is the facilities update.
So you have a list in your packet associated with the items I'm going to talk about, with really just project updates. So the first one, the last meeting I did present the process associated with capital project plan and how it goes through the county first and then it goes to SUNY. And that was submitted, that spreadsheet was submitted for the 5-year plan at the end of August 26th. And then I have till the end of this month to put the narrative, submit the narrative associated with each of those projects. And this year, they're only asking for the 2023 project, and I have already submitted it. So they will, in the process of reviewing that, and then once we get the local sponsor resolution blessed, and we'll continue to update that as I talked about before. The master plan, we finally are moving on with that, and I'm very excited. We did get 5 proposals, and we had an interview committee from the steering committee proper, and we are working to get together, I believe, on this coming Monday or at the end of this week. And then we, out of those 5, we will either select 2 or 3. We'll agree with the top. And then with the steering committee, we will have interviews with the top 2 or 3, as I say, on September 19th. And I feel really good about those proposals. I've looked at them several times, and of course we have a matrix to review them and to grade them. So I feel good, and I'm looking forward to it. Nursing, this is the nursing phase 3 and the lab renovation. And I think everyone gets a little confused because we've combined 2 different projects, but with the thought of really trying to take advantage of the construction dollars and schedule. So we received design documents at quote unquote 75% complete. We're in the process of reviewing all of those documents and adding to make sure that it has the content of what the faculty would like. I'm meeting tomorrow with IT to make sure that we have all of the new technology in there along with the data and the fiber. And I'm also meeting with the faculty to assure that the rooms are laid out appropriately and we have the equipment that they would like. Our goal is to get those construction documents complete in November. This is a very similar process with the nursing project a few years ago, and then get them up to bid in at the end of the year, with the goal of trying to select the contractors in April, and then we can get started. And again, it's somewhat similar. If you remember with the nursing, we did the major renovation. We got that done in the first summer, and then we had a whole year to finish the new construction. And this will be very similar. We're going to look at renovating the lab on the 3rd floor in the summer and get that ready for fall of 2023. And then the nursing, which is that 4th floor that we all know, and we have the roof that we put in and the wall that we put in and the monitors that we put in. We're going to knock it all down, and we're going to build a lab up there along with a flex education area. The gym heating and ventilating units, these are the 2 very old units that we held together by duct tape. We are getting those removed. We were looking at having the crane here tomorrow, and things happen, and it's delayed for another week. So on the 14th, we will take out the old and put in the new, and then it'll be a little delayed from when I wrote this about two or 3 weeks ago. But I would say by the end of September, those units will be ready because they are our heating units. So we know what happens in upstate New York. Hemlock Hall, we just talked about that, and I'll share. Not everyone was here, but I am working with Kurt in the group, and the architect is coming in first week in October to take their concept plan and really spend some time on all the things that they want. And I think we're going to probably get 2 different options and get some rough order of magnitude pricing to be able to help us out to understand how to make the plan. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yes.
Emma?
So for the replacement of the heating and ventilation, will that be more energy efficient, or is it just replacing?
No, it will be much more energy efficient, actually. And those units, if we remember with COVID, there was a filter requirement. They talked about MERV 13s and they had HEPAs, and we had all of our units throughout main campus, and our extension centers were good except those 2. So we had to retrofit those units to be able to get the right filters on that, which caused challenges with the existing system there. So the fans were running much harder because they weren't ready for that. So now we have a different technology and it's much more efficient. And thank you for that. The engineers are actually looking at trying to get a rebate to show the energy efficiency differential, and we may be able to get some monies from NYSERDA. So thank you. There you go.
Any other questions? If not, do you want to go on to the minor maintenance services?
Yes, so I know that Christine has several resolutions. This is looking for the acceptance of the minor maintenance services on walls containing asbestos. As you know, we still are challenged with some of the walls that are here. And this contract is with AAC. We did go out to bid. We had done a couple renewals with them. They're very familiar with the facility and what's required. And where we are now with them is really when we are doing any modifications or putting up IT equipment in the classroom. Some of those classrooms still have asbestos. So they come in and literally with the proper equipment, they'll drill and they'll help us install those. So that's what this is.
Any questions about that? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is the approval of an operating budget amendment. Christina will address that.
In your package, you have the annual operating budget amendment to increase by $3.86 million to accommodate our grants that were awarded during academic year 21-22. Somebody have any questions about that?
Yes.
No questions, but this is just something that we addressed at Ways and Means today and it went right through. So Ways and Means Committee to the county has also seen this.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, the informational items, is there anything you want to highlight there?
So in your packet, you have 3 bid renewals for maintenance of facilities in our facility. And you also have 2 different packets regarding budgetary amendments, which are just a reallocation of expense funds for both academic year 21-22 and 22-23. You may ask, why are we amending a budget that we're just starting? Upon review of the budget, cabinet members or department members may notice that the appropriate allocations need to be transferred. So it's easier to do it at the beginning of the year than allow the expenses to flow through accurately. Any questions?
Any questions about any of those? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any items in the committee?
Just so we put it on the record, there's another amendment for stimulus funds to be used to support strategic plan and 2+2. I have nothing really to add other than what I provided during opening days. But the request is still as we start our strategic planning that we're going to allocate $1 million again for key items for this next strategic plan. And then out of the stimulus funds, $500,000 each, one for the stimulus 2+2 committee, which did wonderful work, and one for presidential initiatives.
Any comments or questions for that? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second. Rich, thank you. You're adjourned.
All right, at this point, we'll break for about 6-7 minutes. Give people a chance to stretch their legs. Let's say 5:45. We'll resume.
Okay. Stretch my legs.
There's snacks and stuff.
I'm
Don't worry.
Well, we should get it out.
So George, how come you're thinking of me?
I don't feel okay with that.
Honestly.
It's a rule like I. Graduation. I hadn't had a chance to talk. Cool.
I saw six people.
My oldest dated.
I think we want the round camera.
Very special.
I mean, it's our first ones here too. They seem to be pretty happy. Look at that, it's good yesterday. Get that out.
Clear Lakes Community College Board of Trustees. The first item on our agenda is always the community and public comment. Do we have anyone here in person or anyone out on the web that would like to make a comment at this time? If so, please identify yourself. So, seeing and hearing no one coming forward, we will move on. We're going to have a special introduction. We already gave Sophie her certificate, and I'm going to turn the presentation part over to Don for a minute to introduce our new student trustee.
Thank you, Joan. It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to introduce our new trustee, Nita Schumacher. And Nita, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, so this is my third semester here at FLCC, and this is definitely a last minute thing. But I'm enjoying it. I love meeting everyone, and I'm excited to get involved and represent the student body. I'm an environmental science student, and once I graduate in the spring, I plan on transferring to student ESF. But I love it here so much, I kind of don't want to leave.
That's very sweet. Say that. We
think the Alumni Association would love to hear that.
Yeah. I'd very much like to hear that.
Nita has been very responsive to my emails, so you've done well. Thank you.
So the rest of the board knows Don is her mentor. Okay. All right. The next item is the approval of consent agenda. Could I have someone move? Okay, thank you very much.
Second.
Who was that?
Second.
Jeff, and Jeff has moved, I'm sorry, Penny, and George second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Resolutions on the consent agenda. Could I have the motion?
So
Thank you, Don. Second.
Santa second.
Thank you, Santa. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Old business. Would anyone like to have any old business that they would like to bring up at this time? All right, very good. This is moving along very speedily. New business. Will anybody have any new business, any comments or anything? Okay, seeing none. President's report, Dr. Knight.
My report's in the packet, but there are two things I'd like to highlight. First off, one's not in the packet, but it's been addressed. We do have an additional $1.2 million that Cindy recently gave us with a rapid turnaround for a general plan that we're working on that goes until we have to provide it to them by September 15th. And they dedicated 200,000 of it, which is for instruction and what we put in originally to get those numbers for the nursing program. And we would like to utilize some of that generally in terms of conceptually right now for a CRM for marketing to do. And then we have a number of ideas in terms of using the additional 800,000 that are focused mostly on student success at this point in time. The only thing I'd like to highlight in our report truly is the great work that so many people did over the summertime from both faculty and staff to get our new learning management system to get together and start. There's still bugs in it, still not perfect, but the work that went into that from all the people to transition over from Blackboard to Brightspace was phenomenal. I see Cheryl nodding her head. It was even though it was a dispersed effort, it was a team effort by a lot of people in IT and from student affairs or ASA, excuse me, and from the faculty that worked over the summer to be able to get that in place. And I just want to thank everybody for that great work. And that concludes the report. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Knight? All right, committee liaison reports. Student trustee. You're not ready. The first meeting is fine, but do you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Go right ahead.
So, one thing I'd love to bring up is that starting September 6th, every other Tuesday, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Student Corporation is starting the Let's Talk series, inspired by Breakfast with Dr. Nye. This is an online hub gauged towards online students, so anyone can join it. And the goal is to increase socialization and connection to the campus and between the students. Jenny Erdl-Griffin, she plans on hosting events, different themes, and online games, and bringing in special guests to interact with the students. And she did provide me a link if anyone is interested. After a meeting, I can provide it to you. Other than that, Student Corporation just is starting another organization. It's called the Non-Traditional Student Organization. They're launching it during the enrollment fair tomorrow from 12 to 2 on the second floor hallway, where all clubs and organizations are invited to participate. So what's interesting about this is that students get to define what non-traditional means, and if they fit that definition, they'll know if they are non-traditional by the events that will be hosted. But to give you kind of an example of what a non-traditional student is, it's anyone that's kind of outside the ages of 16 to 22. They might have children, they might have a career outside of going to school, but really the students get to define it, which I think opens up the ability for them to kind of connect with their age group. I see a lot of older students struggling to get connected and a lot of questions. I think this would be a great opportunity. And then lastly, Student Corporation Board of Directors meeting is Tuesday, September 20th in the Park.
Questions, comments? I think those two initiatives are very good because they'll help both.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, they make them tell part of the campus. It's very important. A very good idea.
I wouldn't tell you that.
Non-traditional.
Non-traditional, right.
Okay, audit.
The audit and committee met a week ago, 10 days ago. Meeting, one of the exercises was we asked the committee members to identify what they thought were their top 3 to 5 risks taken for the college for the future. And then I can't remember if it was necessarily universal, but it was close. That the top 2 that came up, to no one's surprise really, was enrollment and funding. And then there's a little bit of diversity after that, although certainly a majority of community members identified IT security as a threat, as a risk. And from there, it got more diversified. But it was an interesting exercise for the committee, I think, to see how we all thought individually about what the risks.
Any questions for
Any other? Anybody else want to add to that? Or?
I thought it was a really good
Okay.
session.
Thank you.
Board development, Santa, they done. Anything that you would like
Nothing to
I
say.
have nothing either. Nothing to report.
Took a summer hiatus.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Association, Diamond Barb.
Go ahead.
No, there's just a report that was included.
Yeah,
It's
I
very
sent
thorough.
this report in because Carol sent this out and it was a fantastic piece of work you guys did over the summer. I want to thank you very much. And our meeting is September 27th.
Questions? Foundation, myself and Santa, plug for the scholarship dinner. If you haven't already RSVP'd, please do so. It's a wonderful night. We get to see a lot of the scholarship winners. And you get a chance to talk with them because we sit with them. And also we get to meet a lot of the people that have sponsored the scholarships. It's a very nice evening to thank them for all they're doing for our students. Louis, and the golf ball practice coming up. Louis, anything else?
That's it. September 21st golf ball draw. You buy 1 ball for 25 or 5 for 1. I will just say this. We sold one at Morning last year. That's the person.
So wait until the end.
So we
NYCCT,
Could you refresh my memory of what day the dinner is?
it's,
First,
September 15th.
September 15th, so.
Okay.
Whatever.
4:30, so we can get the kids out and their play sweats. And, Don, do you have anything to add for NYCCT?
Just a brief update on our strategic planning meeting that we had in Hudson Valley earlier this month. Sorry, time seems to stretch these days. First weekend, and we met with a gentleman from Long Island who has an advocacy firm. He has done work with a lot of community colleges, including the CUNY system. So he's well aware of the differences between SUNY community colleges and CUNY. He's very anxious to work together with us. He asked great questions. We did have a president from North Country who joined us that day, whose name I am struggling to remember. Rob, do you know the president's name?
I am so bad with names. I'm a visual thinker and learner. I have his name, his face, in my head.
I apologize. I have not met him in person, but he joined us via phone, and he is handling government relations for the President's Association. And he found the meeting to be very beneficial to get caught up on. He's a fairly new president, 2 years.
2 or 3. Joe Keeney.
Yes, Mr. President Keegan. And he is working on a position paper from the president's side for advocacy. And we are working in conjunction with the president's group to have a trustee's statement as well for advocacy decision paper. And we are at the point where we have put together a short list of priorities for the lobbying firm. It's essentially this one gentleman plus he calls in additional people as he needs. We're putting together that short list of priorities, and he will then give us a budget. He gave us an approximate budget. And so what we will then do is take that budget and go to the presidents to see if we can get approval so that we can start within the month of September on advocacy instead of waiting until January, which is typically when SUNY has put their information together. The goal is not to offend or upset anyone in the SUNY system, but our constituency has long felt that we wait way too long to get into the advocacy game. And so this is an effort to make a very serious professional effort in doing so. I'm not going to speak for the presidents. I know that they have a very specific position that they're taking. I think ours will not be that different. We might add something that is more, a little bit more from the trustees' perspective, but they will be complementary. And we're hoping that Andreas will be able to jump in quickly and start working on our behalf. Mainly, the main element of it is to codify the funding for. And there are additions to that. Don't put it in place with this enrollment, but go back to pre-COVID enrollments if you're going to set the funding for it. As soon as I hear more, I will let you know. I will unfortunately be the only one attending NYCCT this year, but I will bring you back a report and the ACC conference. I will join Rob and Todd Sloan in New York City. And I want to thank George, whose name I sort of volunteered to the NYCCT Government Relations Committee as being a very good resource for information. And because they are taking advocacy very seriously and moving it light years ahead to a much more professional level, I thought George would have a lot of expertise that he could share with them. And he has advised me that he's decided to accept their offer of joining the Government Relations Committee. So
A moment of weakness.
the moment, thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Deb. And the final report is Student Corp, and that's Santa and George. Are there?
Keep this super brief. I'll report on the meeting after September 20th.
Right, because they haven't met, like, okay. Very good, George. Very good, George. All right, thank you very much. I have no announcements. Does anybody have an announcement they would like to make? All right, seeing no announcements, we are going to go into an executive session to discuss matters regarding collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. New York State Public Office Law, Article 7, 105. So I need a motion to go into executive session. Bart has moved. Do I have a second?
Second. I'll second it.
Okay, and Jeff has second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we're going to move into executive session and we'll give a moment for those that need to leave.